Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we've got what I would say is a pretty interesting story, and it comes from the article from Deadline where they covered the Doctor Strange box office falling 67% in the domestic box office and around 65% worldwide from week 1 to week 2. And it mentions that Wizard Wobble, a wake-up call for Marvel. And I just immediately saw that headline and thought to myself, but wait a minute, this movie is doing really well. This movie is projected to make hundreds of millions of dollars in net gains and net profits and is doing significantly better than I think anyone would have ever had thought that a sequel to Doctor Strange would do, especially in the midst of the current state of the MCU after last year's atrocities that came out at the box office. But for some reason, it seems that the media is having a bit of a wake-up call. So let's go ahead and dive into exactly what it is that they're seeing, the trends that they are looking at, and also why it is that they think that this movie making money and making lots of money to boot is a bad thing, which I find, again, interesting. Before going any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and also make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with that bell notification on. That way you know every time a video or live stream goes live on the channel. So, as I said, it looks like the media is actually starting to wake up to the fact that Disney's Marvel, the MCU, is not in the same state that it once was. However, the logic that it uses is a bit puzzling, as it goes on to say here that Doctor Strange had a great fall in its second weekend, down 67% for a Disney-reported $61 million take. Rivals are seeing $60 million, 68%. So those are the differences between what Disney's reporting and what other media outlets are reporting. While that drop is akin to the second weekend declines of recent MCU titles, the uber-successful Spider-Man No Way Home and the not-so-successful Black Widow, 67.8, know that all these percentile plummets are not equal. Doctor Strange 2 ranks among the MCU's biggest second weekend box office drops, which includes Black Widow, No Way Home, and 2003's Hulk, which dropped 70%, which, remember, was actually produced by Kevin Feige, though not under the control of Disney at the time. Doctor Strange 2's second weekend decline simply rests on bad word of mouth. Look, they're actually admitting that the word of mouth on this has been bad, and yet the film is making tons of money. The sequel receiving a back-to-back meh grade. Can't believe that's actually in an article from CinemaScore for an MCU movie B+ to Eternals B back in November. Remember, CinemaScore is trash and cannot be trusted because they don't actually release their data or their numbers. All of this should be a splash of cold water in Marvel's face as they go crazy exploiting IP between features and streaming Disney Plus series. Now, we made a lot of hay about Disney's Black Widow's second weekend drop back in July, that the pic's release was impacted by a theatrical Disney Plus PVOD day-and-date release strategy, plus piracy. That argument still stands rock solid. There it is. We still hold by it. We still say that that's true. Sure, Deadline. Not to mention, witness the immense amount of money that Doctor Strange 2 opened to at $187.7 when it was exclusively available in theaters compared to Black Widow's $80.3 back in July. And we remind ourselves that, again, bringing up the PVOD is a bit of a red herring because you cannot guarantee that anyone who actually bought and paid for the movie on Disney Plus would have actually gone to see it in theaters. You just have no actual guarantee of that. And secondly, you cannot actually guarantee that the amount of money made from Disney Plus was actually enough to make up for the amount of money they had to spend on, for instance, the legal fees for the lawsuit that was brought against them by Scarlett Johansson, amongst a myriad of other factors. So, again, when you dive into box office numbers, there are so many other revenue streams in addition to all of these things that make it a very mixed bag and make it very difficult to actually get any rock-solid numbers, as they try and say. Even I admit that the numbers that I come up with, the numbers that I am able to project, the numbers that I'm able to, figure out just based on historical standards and industry standards are all projections. They're all with the understanding of the box office working in a certain way, but the box office is not an exact science. As we all know, there are different ways in which films and studios and giant corporations can make money from merchandising sales, which are hard to quantify. to secondary sales, right? From streaming services, from putting it out onto more premium service. Now, obviously, that's become a little less complicated nowadays because, or actually even more complicated because it used to be that Disney would, sell the rights to its movie to a major broadcasting company or would, sell it to HBO or something like that, premium service provider and be able to get, a quick buck off of it. But now, since they own stock in things like Hulu, majority stock in Hulu, essentially owning Hulu, and also the fact they have their own streaming service, the question then becomes, well, how much money they're actually getting from those secondary sources. But I digress. But what about the third highest grossing movie ever at the domestic box office, 804.6 million, Spider-Man No Way Home, and its second weekend fall? Why did that movie tumble? That beloved sequel's decline was strictly due to Christmas Eve, a low-traffic movie-going day falling on Friday, and the fact that the John Watts-directed movie was making money hand over fist during its weekdays. Its first midweek grossing ranged from $28.8 to $37 million per day. Note, Doctor Strange 2 fall this weekend doesn't have anything to do with slow-traffic movie-going day. However, yesterday afternoon, it finally hit me in the face that the bad word of mouth on Doctor Strange 2 and that B+ grade, again, that does not mean a dang thing, were taking its toll because, again, CinemaScore's trash. That a Batman v Superman factor was in effect. Another B-graded film, a 69% drop, second weekend decline comic book title. This occurred to me when my jaunt to Bed Bath & Beyond, these people, was interrupted by a phone call from my cousin Vinny in the Bronx. Wow. Your cousin Vinny in the Bronx. It's a little bit on the nose there. A guy who is a very passionate MCU fanboy and fits tracking definition of being a frequent moviegoer, watching at least 3 movies a month. Typically, such phone calls on Saturday are from box office sources complaining about my analysis or trying to whisper that Moonfall was in the black. Which is just a joke in and of itself. Vinny is also the type of moviegoer who shows up to an MCU movie at a Thursday night preview at Lincoln Square and buys his tickets in advance. This time around, as a Marvel fan, he's not wasting his time seeing Doctor Strange 2 a second time, which is not only an anomaly for him, but begs the question that other Marvel fans are also following suit. I'm going around telling everyone I know to avoid Doctor Strange 2, Vinny complained. Now, I will say that this is something that I myself have actually noticed. Now, these are all, again, just ancillary data. Does not actually mean anything necessarily. But, for instance, students who are typically very fond of MCU films and are very passionate about them and, love them and have even been fans of some of the MCU shows on Disney Plus, for instance, for this film, a lot of them have just been very pulled on this one. A lot of them have been like, I liked parts of it, didn't like parts of it. Not really as like, oh yeah, this was awesome. And so I do think that this film is unique in that I think it is waking some people up who maybe weren't previously awoken to the fact that these films are starting to drop in quality, at least from a storytelling perspective. Now, I thought that should have been pretty obvious with Endgame. However, Endgame had what this film really didn't have to the same extent, and that was a huge impact on just, member berries and, oh man, the franchise, and let's talk about the journey that we've gone on and the character arcs finishing up and completing, right, especially for Captain America and for Iron Man. So I think that those emotional tones were able to kind of distract away from the story in a lot of ways. Whereas with Doctor Strange 2, all it has is the wake of the events of Spider-Man No Way Home, which had its own member berries, and that's why the film was remembered as well as it was. And I've started to rewatch it myself, and again, I do think that there are a lot of things to actually like in that film, as far as it just being a fun popcorn film, right? A fun box office summer, typical, even though they come out of the summer, but again, that typical summer box office fare where you're not going in to have a well thought out movie, and you're not going in to have a well thought out story. You're just going in to have some fun, and that film I think is a lot of fun, especially because of a lot of those, callbacks with the, of course, appearances of people like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, etc. However, Doctor Strange has some of those elements, right? Has some of those member berries in it with some characters that are being established and some actors and characters from previous films and previous properties showing up as well. Obviously, it's a multiverse, so that was expected to happen. But the story is just so convoluted and so much of a mess that it makes sense that a lot of audiences are very mixed on this and are saying, yeah, I don't know exactly what's going on. But I just thought it was interesting that, yeah, you actually have someone in the media, even though they're like, we're still rock solid when we talk about Black Widow, we're still rock solid when we talk about those other really, clearly woke films. When it comes to Doctor Strange, I think that, again, there's a couple of moments, and obviously there is the MCU factor, but I would definitely say that the other movies just were a lot worse than what this film was. It's not a good movie by any means, and I, again, was very clear on that in my review, which apparently some people who watch my videos have not seen my review, but the fact still remains is that this is a huge mess, and again, even though this is a drop-off that is akin to, again, No Way Home, which was a massive success, and Black Widow, which was not a massive success, and other films, the fact is that this film is expected to do well. Again, I've just updated some of these charts. This is my Google Sheets chart. It's the same as the other chart that's on my website. But anyway, I decided to start putting in some drops here. And so notice how you have films like Doctor Strange 2, which is set to be a massive success and ended up having a 65% drop worldwide. All the while, you have films like The Northman and Memory, which had much less drops, and yet these, because of their budgets and because the starting number is so low, is expected to be a financial failure. And I think that this is going to be, the key to look at in the future is not really necessarily the drop. What's going to be the big key is, what does the next Marvel film do in its opening weekend? That is going to be the biggest test. Whatever the next Marvel film is, I thought it was the Marvels, but I think that they had pushed that one back potentially. So whatever the next Marvel film, the next actual Disney Marvel film is, pay very close attention to the worldwide opening weekend, and I would say compare that to the opening weekend of Doctor Strange 2. And if you see that that film comes in significantly less, especially if it's a major title, meaning it's from one of the first rounds of films or one of the second rounds of films and not just some random introduction of a new character, if you see that number go down, I think that would be a strong indication that they're starting to lose audience. We already know that they're losing audience members, but that would be an even clearer indication. And then we can look and see, will it have a similar drop-off as some of the other films that have been previously mentioned will have? Is this going to become a standard where you have people holding on, but then more and more of them starting to lose and starting to say, okay, I give up on this. Okay, I was going to give it one more chance, and now I'm leaving. Does that trend continue? And if that trend does continue, it'll become obvious from two numbers, not just this drop, because again, the drop can be a bit deceptive because this is kind of standard for a lot of big budget films. Even even Fantastic Beasts 3, right, showed around a 70% drop in its second weekend in comparison. But the fact remains is that when we look to these films, that opening weekend number is going to be a huge factor. Again, that $450 million opening weekend compared to the Batman, again, came in a lot stronger than the Batman did. Uncharted came in a lot stronger, obviously, than that film did. Spider-Man No Way Home, though, $600 million opening weekend. We're already seeing a lot less, but remember, this was a Sony Disney product, and so therefore it's a little bit different. Eternals, $161 as far as its opening weekend. Some of these were not confirmed because of them having very weird day-and-date release models and also opening up in other countries. But let's see, Shang-Chi, $127 in its worldwide opening. Venom 2, $103 in its worldwide opening. Black Widow, $158.8 in its worldwide opening. $285 for Godzilla vs. Kong. And let's see if we can even go back a little bit to so Rise of Skywalker, $373. Frozen 2, $358. So as you can see, this film is doing very well. Like, compared to some pretty heavy hitters on this chart, that film is doing incredibly well as far as its initial box office. But I think what Deadline's article is missing is they're focusing too much on this drop. Bad word of mouth is true. I know that as a fact because I'm someone who said, it's not a good movie, go see Everything Everywhere All at Once instead. It's the much better multiverse film. But really, the question is going to be, where does this opening weekend number go? Because if this starts to trend downward for all the films going forward, and they continue to have drops like this, that could spell a nail in the coffin for the franchise in the future. But at this point, not the case. At this point, we're looking at a film, whether anyone likes it or not. Again, I don't like the film, and I don't like Disney, but the numbers are what they are. This is a film that's going to make probably close to $1 billion worldwide by the end of its run and make anywhere between $289 and $550 to $525 in just net gain profits. It's already made over $100 million in net gain and profit. And so that is a very impressive number, no matter how anyone looks at it. But I do think that it is interesting that the mainstream media is starting to recognize that maybe people are finally starting to get tired of the MCU. Though, as I mentioned, it's kind of a weird movie and a weird moment for them to make this take, and it almost makes me think they're doing this on purpose to try and spin it for when a film like The Marvels comes out, because obviously that's going to be very MCU related. That's going to have Captain Marvel in it. It's going to have Brie Larson in it. Oh my gosh, Queen Brie is going to be back. Are they doing this to try and say, oh, but look at this film's drop, it's so much better, while again focusing on the drop and not on the opening weekend numbers? I think that is something also to look ahead to and pay attention to. What are y'all's thoughts about this? Do you think that the media is waking up, or do you think that they're just playing the game? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, light up that fire button on Odyssey. Y'all all amazing and beautiful people. It's an exam week. Summer's almost upon us. MegaCon is this weekend down in Orlando, so very excited stuff. Anyway, you're great. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And also, before I go, I want to give a huge shout out to a new Patreon member, Luca Illick. I think that is how the name is pronounced. Luca, reach out to me if that pronunciation is wrong, or if you want another special shout out as far as website or anything like that. But you are my newest chosen of Valhalla members. I wanted to make sure to get you a shout out. Anyway, have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. Before going any further, I wanted to give a very, very huge special shout out to one of my Valkyries, one of my longtime supporters, Tina B, the Empress of the Universe. Thank you. Thank you, thank you so much for being a supporter and for being a mod on this channel. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my members who are at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and above on Patreon, Subscribestar, and Locals. So first on Patreon, Brandon, let's go Brandon, Christopher Bowman, Garrett Searles, Hymir Irie Hymason, Jacob from Holland, Jacob Juice, who you can check out on his Letterboxd. Jacob Juice is how you can find it. Jeffrey Toon, Joey Horn, Jonathan Carney, Laura, the Modern Major General, Story, Mad Mike Jackson, special shout out for him in a second, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Orange Hat Reviews, you can check out his channel, Orange Hat Reviews, Rosetta Allen, you can check out her channel as well, Stan Andrian, and Miss Martin Muses, who also has a YouTube channel, and a special shout out, as I mentioned, to Jacob Juice from Holland, again, letterboxd.com/Jacob Juice for more information about him, and a special shout out to my members over on Subscribestar, Matt 317, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Mr. Roy, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and ZK Man. Thank y'all very much for supporting on Subscribestar. And to two of the members who are supporting me over on Locals, who asked for special shout-outs. First off, Minnesota hockey fan. Let's go. Let's get a hockey player. And UAB, Mad Dog, Mike Jackson for the win. Thank you very much for supporting me, and also Robert Barnes on Locals as well. Anyway, if you want a special shout out, and Brett D90 for that matter, if you want a special shout out at the end of every single video, please check out that top link at the very top of the video description. It'll give you more information about the different tiers and what you get every single month. Thank you guys for your love, for your patience, for this month's shout out video as well. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.